Before we get started, these theories may contain spoilers. Number 15. Willy Wonka is a serial killer. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was a beloved novel and movie for children and adults alike. Of course, as should be expected, a dark theory was brewed by several fans that Willy Wonka was actually a depraved serial killer. The theory states that Wonka, after having lived decades in solitude, grew mad over time. He was also livid about his competitors going to such great lengths to spy on his recipes and ideas. As a result of betrayal and madness, Wonka orchestrated a complex plan to kill children in the community as a form of revenge. Wonka purposefully led each child to the horrible accidents they experienced by paying close attention to their personalities and downfalls.
Don't speak. For some moments in life, there are no words.
This was how the Oompa Loompas had planned a song for every accident, despite it allegedly happening out of the blue. Furthermore, Wonka knew from the beginning that Charlie would be the only one to not completely break his trust. After he exacted his revenge, he planned to pass along his dark and devious chocolate empire to Charlie, to carry on his legacy of both murder and candy making. This is clearly a bit of a stretch, but seeing some darker moments of Gene Wilder's portrayal of the questionable Candy King gives this eerie theory a bit of validity.
Parting is such sweet sorrow.
Number 14. Inception. This layered trip of a film has countless theories floating around all over the web. One of the more popular theories, though, comes from the cliffhanging scene that the movie ends on. For those that have seen the flick, you know that when venturing into Dreamland, Cobb uses a totem to confirm he is actually dreaming. This same totem is used in the real world to help Cobb keep a grip on reality and assure he hasn't died in a dream. Throughout the entire film, we are made to believe that Cobb's totem is a spinning top. If he is awake, the top eventually stops spinning and falls over, but in a dream it just continues to spin until he stops it. At the end of the movie, as Cobb questions if he is awake, alive, dreaming, dead, or in some sick limbo, he spins the totem on a table. The camera zooms into the top, but the film ends just before it stops spinning. Viewers are left wondering if it ever stopped or if Cobb was in a dream state. This ending sparked a lot of conversation and theories around Cobb's fate. However, an opposing theory actually suggests that Cobb's totem wasn't the top at all. It was his wedding ring. In the real world, Cobb doesn't wear his wedding ring. He does wear it when in dreams though. He even seems to fidget with the ring when unsure of his surroundings. At the end of the film, as Cobb spins the top, you can clearly see he is wearing his wedding ring. This would suggest that Cobb was in a dream. Of course, this leaves the question, why even spin the top? Most claim it was just an extra precaution against his totem, as it wasn't unlikely for Cobb to be more paranoid than others. Then again, it could have just been done for cinematic reasons. Either way, this theory leaves you wondering if you're awake or living in a very convincing dream. Check your totems. Number 13. Doc Brown's suicide. According to this fan theory, during the first test of the DeLorean, Doc Brown was ready to die. Just before his first test, Doc Brown explains that all of his past experiments have been failures, and that he was ready to give up on his life's work if this one didn't succeed. If you're looking deep enough, a mad scientist facing a lifetime of failed experiments would likely be depressed enough to end it all on the off chance things didn't work out. Allegedly, when he claimed he was ready to end his life's work, his life was included in that statement. This is why during the test he stands in front of the car, so that if things don't kick into proper gear, he will be put out of his misery on the spot. Luckily, the test is a major success, and through his adventures with Marty, he finds a new meaning for life. There are, of course, other much darker theories that Doc wanted to kill Marty with him.
What's this? What's this?
But for now, let's stick to this theory that still has a good ending, and shed some positive light on Doc. Number 12. Harry Potter Fantasy. The Harry Potter franchise, which spans over several novels and film adaptations, is a story many may know. Even if you're not a member of the massive fandom, You've likely still got an idea that it's the magical tale of a young wizard. The story begins with Harry, the protagonist, living in a small storage space beneath a staircase. He lives with his aunt and uncle and receives very little attention and no affection at all. The number of theories out there about the series is infinite, from small details to skip lines in the book, to possible backstories of major characters. This fandom has covered it all. One of the much darker theories though is that none of it is real. A common theory for any great work is that it's all the imagination of the protagonist, but in this case it actually seems likely. The theory suggests that Hogwarts, Ron, Hermione, and the adventures that take place are all just stories Harry has made up in his head. Harry lives in what is basically an abusive household. He's forced under the stairs, hidden from the family and any possible guests, and he doesn't even get to attend school with other children. This type of isolation could easily lead to mental disorders, which would make vivid delusions possible. Even without a mental disorder, a child living such a life of solitude would make up fun stories in their mind just to pass time, and find some joy in their loneliness. Other similar theories claim that the story is about Harry's descent into madness, and that Hogwarts is actually his perception of a mental asylum he gets sent to. All of the big magical battles are metaphors for Harry fighting off his mental illness. After all, it's more plausible than witchcraft and wizardry. Then again, it's much more likely that author J.K. Rowling just had a great idea about wizards and rolled with it. Number 11. Peter Pan. This classic Disney tale is heartwarming, fun and magical. Anyone that has seen the film though, must admit there's always been something a little unsettling about the Lost Boys, a group of children on a faraway island, forced to never grow up and live without parental observation, for what we can only assume is eternity. It's a bit morbid on its own. This theory really strengthens that tone. According to this theory, Peter Pan is the angel of death that helps children cross into the afterlife. The Lost Boys are, of course, children stuck in limbo before they can actually move on to the afterlife. There's even a theory that the fairies, such as Tinkerbell, are children too, or other angels. J.M. Barrie, the creator of Peter Pan, even admitted that the character is based on his own brother David, who died when he was a child. Furthermore, he claimed that the character was loosely based on a legend, which told of a boy who escorted children to the afterlife, kind of like the Greek god Hermes. If we are expecting the tales to follow this idea, we have to question what role Wendy played. Was she perhaps terminally ill, and this was her brush with death before she fought her way back to health? For the most part, it's likely that Peter Pan was based on an angel of death, but the rest of the stories don't really fall into place with that. Number 10. Hot Tub Time Machine. This comedy brings out the best of a man's midlife crisis by combining the party life and cold hard nostalgia. The film features a group of guys and a 20-year-old nephew. The older men in the group all feel as if they've reached a rut in their life, and they begin to question the choices they've made in the last 20 or so years. Thanks to a magical hot tub with a time machine feature, the group is transported back to the 80s, where the men make major changes for themselves and find comfort in their older age. This fan theory takes that happy, lighthearted ending and really twists things into a nightmare. According to the fan theory with unknown origins, one of the main characters, Lou, successfully commits suicide in the beginning of the film.
Oh no, just when things went right, doesn't mean they were always wrong.
Everything that happens thereafter is a mix between a sci-fi limbo and an afterlife of success, fortune, and fame. While you can find comfort that this theory is likely untrue because of Hot Tub Time Machine 2, it does make you question your own reality and what beliefs you may have of the afterlife. Aside from that, it's a little creepy to know that someone out there looked this deep into a comedy and found something so dark. Number 9. The Thing. This 1982 sci-fi thriller left fans with a plethora of questions and concerns. The film features a parasitic extraterrestrial life form that assimilates other organisms and in turn imitates them. The ending is less than satisfying, but that didn't stop fans from brainstorming their own theories as to what the ending meant and the fate of the protagonists. At the end of the film, after a huge fight scene, Childs returns to Macready explaining that he had been lost in a storm. Macready offers Childs a drink from his bottle of scotch and gives a gentle laugh. He then goes to set up a chessboard and the scene ends. It is originally described as the two characters coming to terms with their inevitable fate. However, YouTuber Rob Ager pointed out that Childs was in fact infected by the Thing, and was later torched by MacReady, though this isn't shown in the film. The reason for this theory is that Childs would not have taken the bottle for fear of becoming infected unless he was already infected. There's also other clues in the way the script is written and in the DVD commentary of the film, thanks to fans like Rob Ager who dug deep into the details of a great cinema. Theories like this are born. If you'd like a full explanation of this theory, check out the links below. Number 8. Bruce Almighty. This 2003 comedy follows the life of a small-time reporter going through a rough patch in his life. Work isn't going well, his relationship is on the rocks, and Bruce generally has horrible luck. On his last straw, he harshly criticizes his job on live TV, explaining that God hates him and is doing his job terribly. After this, he receives a job offer, which happens to be the job of playing God. Through the rest of the film, Bruce is granted the same powers as God and learns a lot about himself, how life works, and what faith is all about. There's a pretty unsettling fan theory out there though, that suggests none of this actually happens. Bruce is going through a tough time and seems to snap on air. According to this theory, after snapping, Bruce just continued a downward spiral of decaying mental health.
Be careful what you wish for, punk.
No! Nope! Nope! I am a reasonable, sane human being.
44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world.
All of the God delusions are just that, delusions. Bruce is never granted God's powers, and he never meets God. After nearly being killed at the peak of his mental breakdown, Bruce finally receives appropriate psychiatric care, and that's why things go back to normal. Even if this theory were true, Bruce did learn a lot about how to live a better life and be a better person. Sometimes it takes a delusional mental breakdown to teach us a bit about how to be happy. Number 7. Toy Story 3. Of all the intense Disney theories that have been formulated over the years, this is by far one of the most bizarre. Journalist Jordan Hoffman is credited for bringing attention to this theory, that Toy Story 3 is a metaphor for the Holocaust, or at least mass genocide. The details are great, and the more you read into the concept, the more you will believe it to be plausible. We can't go over every piece of evidence, as a theory this huge deserves a video all its own. For the most part, Hoffman credits parallels between the toys being abandoned and locked in an attic the same way Jewish citizens were abandoned by their country and forced to stow away in attics and other hiding spaces. After being put away, Woody even holds a meeting to discuss their options. Apparently, the short speech is suspiciously similar to a scene from Roman Polanski's Holocaust drama, The Pianist. After this, they meet what Hoffman describes as the toy version of a Sonderkommando, a group of toys who are well fed and sheltered, but are forced to lead other toys to death and torture. By the end of the adventurous and oddly dark film, the protagonists find a safe, happy place to live. Hoffman compares this to the formation of the Israeli state. He even goes into detail on comparing the Claw to the Allied forces. Again, this seems like a huge stretch for a kids movie. Consider though that this is not unlikely for film creators to throw in subliminal messages, symbolism, or parallels. Cinema, after all, is just another form of art. A more intense and focused look on this theory will surely convince you. Number 6. Hanging Munchkin. This entry is more about an onset theory than a theory based around the film itself. A few years ago, a clip started going around of The Wizard of Oz, where there seems to be a hanging figure in the distance as Dorothy and her crew skip down the yellow brick road. A theory or rumor came about that the figure was actually an actor who hung himself on set. One of the Munchkin actors was apparently so overwhelmed with having to be so chipper all the time that the stress ended in an on-set suicide. The crew of the film didn't discover the body was caught on film until during editing. They were unable to reshoot the scene, and so they left the body swaying in the distance. None of this was true in the end. An HD version of the clip was later released, which showed the figure to be a large bird off in the distance.
We're off to see the wizard, a wonderful Wizard of Oz.
This does, however, go to show how easily a theory can spread and mislead viewers. Number 5. Totoro. Yet another dark theory about a heartwarming kids movie. My Neighbor Totoro is one of the great works by Hayao Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli. The story follows two young girls who have recently moved to the country with their father after their mother fell ill. Through adorable adventures and breathtaking art, they meet forest spirits who live nearby. This theory suggests that Totoro is actually the god of death and when May finds her younger sister's sandal near a pond, she had actually already drowned. When Totoro opens the door to a magical realm, it is the realm of the afterlife. Once May and her sister Satsuki go to see their mother, she is the only one that notices them because she herself is on the verge of death. More speculation has highlighted the similarities between the general plot of My Neighbor Totoro and a real-life tragic murder case that occurred in 1963. A 16-year-old girl from Samea went missing one day after school, and a ransom note was sent to her family. The note instructed for the victim's sister to bring the money to his designated location. The victim's body was later found, and her sister committed suicide out of guilt and mourning. Of course, it's clear that these two stories are strangely similar. My Neighbor Totoro doesn't take a much lighter side on the story, making death seem like a magical and peaceful experience. More importantly, no one involved in the making of the film has ever confirmed or denied these theories, so for the time being they are nothing more than speculations. Dark and disturbing speculations. Number 4. Drag Me to Hell. This 2009 horror film is loved by many, and hated by just as many. Some find it terrifying and grotesque, while others see it as cheesy and forced. Would your opinion on the film change if you found out it wasn't your typical run-of-the-mill horror? The plot follows a young bank teller, Allison, who is forced to deny an elderly gypsy woman's request for a loan. After denying the gypsy woman, Allison is cursed and her life turns into a walking nightmare, with gore, vomit, demonic hallucinations, and a cursed button included. A theory out there suggests that Allison isn't actually struggling with a gypsy curse though. She is apparently struggling with an eating and slightly mental disorder. This theory came to life because several photos of a younger Allison showed that she was slightly overweight. One even shows her standing in front of a sign that reads, "Swine Queen," probably a projection of her own feelings. Throughout the film, viewers rarely see Allison eat or even touch food, and many of the gross scenes are centered around food or vomiting. Those that dug deep enough into the film even noticed that when food was on screen, Allison would be attacked by the so-called demon shortly after.
I hear you! Leave me alone! Just leave me the hell alone!
Babe, there's no one there.
It's likely that the stress and guilt of rejecting the poor old woman brought her eating disorder to a peak, which is common for those suffering from EDs. Spoiler alert, but the ending where Allison is hit by a train could also be a sad metaphor for her committing suicide after years of struggling. There are some fairly valid arguments out there for this one, and if you truly believe this film is about the anxiety, fear, and illness centered around a severe eating disorder, it makes the film 10 times more horrifying. Number 3. Grease. This theory was originally posted to Reddit in 2013, but didn't start gaining momentum until late 2016. The theory is simple and states that at the end of the film, Danny and Sandy get into a red convertible which flies off into the sky. Of course, even for its time, this was an odd scene. Why would the car fly away instead of just driving off? If you recall the beginning of the film, Danny and Sandy meet at a beach where, according to Danny, she nearly drowned, but he saved her life. Allegedly, Sandy did die at the beach, but Danny was the last person she saw as he attempted to save her life. From here, she went into a limbo where she moved to Danny's school and had this great romantic musical adventure with the greaser boy and all his friends. The car flying off symbolizes Sandy passing on into heaven. Of course, this is quite a stretch, and it's likely that the flying car was just a poor and strange choice made by the film creators. It's still an interesting idea that would make the classic take a whole new and unsettling route. Number 2. The Shining. There's a long-standing and widespread theory that Stanley Kubrick directed and faked the moon landing. Many believe that the famous Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969 was actually done in an intricate studio and then broadcasted to people all over the world. To add to this strange conspiracy, many believe that The Shining was Kubrick's subtle confession that the moon landing was in fact staged. There have been countless interpretations of this theory, and 2 entire documentaries have been dedicated to organizing the details and uncovering the so-called truth. Some signs from the film that many believe to be Kubrick's confession include: several characters are wearing red, white, and blue throughout the first half of the film. The hotel was built on Indian burial grounds, much like America as a whole. One character has an American flag stationed in his office despite the heavy Native American decor around the rest of the settings. When Danny plays with the toys in the hallway, he is wearing an Apollo 11 sweater. The hexagonal pattern on the carpet changes directions on purpose. A hexagon is the shape of NASA's launching pads. The list really goes on endlessly as people have nitpicked every detail and brought some sign of confession from them. One doing some research on the theory may completely buy it, but others disregard it as far stretched as unfair. The truth is really up for viewers to decide. Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills and I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you've ever been curious as to what I look like in real life, then follow me on Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT with underscores instead of spaces. I also have a Twitter at YT_chills where I post video updates. I'd really appreciate it if you followed me, and feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions or suggestions. If you'd like to see more of these videos in the future, then hit that subscribe button because we upload new countdowns every Tuesday and Saturday. Number 1. Aliens or Demons? M. Night Shyamalan is a famous director known for his symbolism and major plot twists. While some fans strongly disliked his 2002 film Signs, others took the time to dig deeper and found a possible meaning behind the sci-fi. This theory claims that the aliens aren't aliens at all, but are in fact demons. Firstly, the film is all about a priest's faith being revived. The aliens have no advanced technology or clothing, and seem more animalistic than anything.
Vámonos!
Those that come into contact with the so-called aliens see them based on their own mind state. The creatures have bad reactions to not only water, but specifically holy water. There are countless crucifixes spotted throughout the film, and the creatures behave more like tricksters in place to wreak havoc than intelligent beings with a goal in mind. This is yet another theory with limitless details, and it really opens the floor for discussion on what many saw to be a flop of a film. Thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to subscribe because we upload new countdowns every Tuesday and Saturday. Or if you're still not convinced, here are some of our other videos that I think you'd like. Enjoy!